Hi there, class. I'm going to talk today about printing from a SketchUp model. Let's start off with just preparing our model for printing. And as I mentioned before, you should put in components and that kind of thing. There are a couple of other kinds of things you might want to add. For example, wouldn't it be nice to put a door in this wall? As we've seen before, if you go to the components menu, you can type in different things. So maybe I'll type in closet door, see what we come up with. And these components can be placed inside different elements. So for example, here we go, bifold closet door. And I'll just click on that. Some SketchUp components are meant to jump into a wall. So you see how it jumps into that wall? It doesn't always work. Sometimes you have to just place it manually, but you can click to place it in the wall. It will kind of snap to that surface. Now you might see that it doesn't actually cut the opening. A lot of components just don't work great, and some of them are weird sizes and all that, and some of them just don't cut through walls. You have to kind of cut the openings yourself. And the way you can do that, like let's say I wanted to just put a window opening in here. I don't want to put a whole window component. You have to select the existing model. So I'm going to use my select command, and you can click on the select button, or you can hit the space bar. And I often have my extra hand, my third hand, on the keyboard ready to hit some of these keyboard shortcuts. M for move, P for push pull. So anyway, I'm going to select the existing kind of model that I brought in from AutoCAD, and I'll double click on it, and you see how I get this funny bounding box around it, and that's kind of a gray bounding box, and objects which are not part of that group or component, depending on what it is, are going to be kind of grayed out. But what this is now I can select individual pieces of that original AutoCAD model, and this makes it easy. If I wanted to, say, draw a window, I could come in here and draw right on this wall and use my push-pull command. The push-pull command is what allows you to take a surface and kind of extrude it like Play-Doh. Push-pull is the box with an arrow on it, or you can type in P. Now when I click over a surface, and I happen to have this one already selected, it allows me to move that surface in or out. Now you see how my cursor says on face? That's indicating that it recognizes this back wall, and that's really handy because now I can just click on that back wall and look at that. It opens the window right up, and this is of course handy because now in our perspective views we're going to see the horizon line. Of course, we know that's a critical part of making our perspective drawings. Now, you have, if you're like me, to exit out of this component, by the way, just click on your select command, and you have to double click outside of this bounding box here. So I'll just double click out there. If you're, sometimes you get kind of like inside the model and you're inside a component, so I'm editing the component, and you see how I don't see the bounding box? Sometimes it's a little confusing on how to get out of that area there, how to get out of the component edit. So you actually have to go to the edit pull-down menu and choose close group or component. Anyway, now I'm not editing the component anymore. Now I have a bunch of saved scenes here. If you remember correctly, scenes kind of save the camera angle, the field of view, your station point, all that great information, including whether or not it's a two-point perspective or not. But it does get a little confusing when you have a lot of them. And I like to save this overview. It's just a quick way to get there. If I wanted to rename these, I can just right-click on one of those scenes and choose Scene Manager. And this gives me information about each scene, and I can choose whether or not they are named, whether or not the thumbnails are visible or not. By default, I don't believe the thumbnails are visible. I can also show the details, and if you look down here in my menu, so for example, Scene 3, I believe, is my overview. I can just change the name here to Overview and hit Enter. And what's nice is, it doesn't change any of the other settings. However, it does change what the scene name is here on the tab. There's a couple of other things that you can do when preparing your model for printing. For example, I believe I showed drawing in a ceiling using a rectangle. You can also draw in a floor using a rectangle also. I just clicked on the rectangle button and drew that in there. Of course, if I draw one on the ceiling right now, I won't be able to see into my overview. Anyway, to print, like other PC views, let me just choose a scene here that's worthwhile. Oh, that's a beautiful view. If I do Control P, that'll bring me to the print menu. You can also go to the File pull-down menu and print from that menu. And the big thing is, as I have mentioned from AutoCAD, you'll probably want to use some kind of PDF file. Now on a PC, you don't have any way to instantly convert it to a PDF file. But if you have bought the Adobe Creative Suite, you'll get this Adobe PDF for free, and I think you're supposed to buy that anyway, so you might want to use that. I'll just click on that one. If you're feeling like your budget is stretched, Bullzip PDF printer is a freebie that is out there that is just as good. So anyway, by default, SketchUp or Adobe PDF has its own page sizes, so you'll want to come in here and choose a size that works for you. And of course, there's a long list. Tabloid is the 11 by 17 style. Okay, and there's other features, including print quality. We can choose black and white. And then on the initial tab here, you can choose the orientation. Of course, this is a wide field of view, which is typical of interior perspectives. So you'll want to choose landscape view. Okay, click OK. And we're back in the print menu. It's printing the current view. You can also print all of your scenes if you wanted. Print them all in one happy get-go. Anyway, and then the final option down here is you want to fit it to the page. And what that will do is it will squeeze whatever it sees onto the screen. Click OK. And it will print, and it's going to ask you where do you want to save the file. And if you're like me, you always forget where you've saved it. But I'll just save this onto the desktop. And let's see if it opens up here for me. Maybe not. Let's go and hide all this other stuff. And there it is, awaiting its print job in all its beauty. Okay, so that is printing in a nutshell. There is one other thing that I'd like to talk about, and some of you are getting pretty far in your plans, and you've actually added a lot to your SketchUp model, and this is great. And of course, it doesn't really matter where you add the information in AutoCAD or in SketchUp, or some of you are going to be just happiest drawing things in by hand. It's not entirely up to you. I, of course, am lazy and prefer to do it on the computer. One thing that you can do is put in a floor plan. And the way you do that, by default, SketchUp is in perspective. So you see, no matter what I do, I'm trying to make it a plan, but it's in perspective. There are some standard views here in SketchUp, and these actually correspond quite neatly to the view cube that you see in the right in AutoCAD. You know how there's that view cube there? So if I click on top view, it will take me to an overview of the 3D model. Now, of course, this is a one-point perspective. It's a bird's eye, right? Because I'm looking from above. What I need to do is turn perspective off. So, and of course, like I mentioned, you don't have to print a plan out of SketchUp, only for those of you who are making a lot of changes in your SketchUp model. You might find this interesting. So anyway, under the camera pull-down menu, where we chose two-point perspective before, now we can choose parallel perspective. And oh, look at that, it's a lovely floor plan. So, and this is obviously, it's not a thing of beauty. The graphics are kind of weird and the circles aren't dashed and all that. But it certainly will give us plenty to go on. The only other thing is that the graphic look of this plan is kind of lame. I don't like the green background here. And SketchUp by default has that in there. But you can change that. Like with everything in SketchUp, you can change the way it behaves. If changing the graphic look of the drawing, you just go to the Styles pull-down menu. And so I'm going to go to the Window pull-down menu, and choose the Styles submenu. And what you'll see here is it has a little preview of what the style looks like. It may have this select button, and depending on how you're set up, it may or may not have this additional select panel down here. And the default view, where is it? I think it's the architectural design style, but it doesn't really matter. And you can click on any of these, and there's actually quite a few different styles that you can choose from. And I have these up here so I can just kind of show you quickly. There's line styles and other sorts of things. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to edit this default style. And there's a number of different kind of features that you can edit. So there's, what do the lines look like? There is the color of different elements. So for example, the back color is this blue that we're seeing. I could go and make that a little lighter. You see how it lightens up a little bit. Or not. If you printed this plan with a little bit of tone in it, you could certainly use that as a base level of tone when you go to render. But anyway, the one that we want to change is, where is it here? It is the one that is called the background color, and it is green by default, which I guess is supposed to be grass or something like that. Anyway, you can click on it and you can choose a color using the color wheel. You can also use RGB, and I find that's easy because it's absolutely clear that I'm getting white when I do the RGB picker, whereas in the other menus it's a little small. So anyway, when I click OK, you can see the screen goes blank. Also, I can get rid of the axes here. They don't really print, so it doesn't matter. But sometimes it's nice to see it as a preview in this view. So anyway, so that's a way that you can change your style of your view. What I'm going to do, though, I don't want this to affect all of these other scenes, so I'm going to save this as a new scene. And again, I'll just right-click on a different scene and choose Add. And when you do that, by default, SketchUp kind of gives any new scene just whatever the current style is. But I'm going to save it as a new style, and that way it doesn't affect any of the other scenes. And of course, I probably should rename that to be something a little more revealing than just Scene 6. I'm just going to call it Plan View. Okay? And as I mentioned, you can quickly jump from scene to scene, and I still have my horizon line visible out my window, in my overview, but now when I go to the Plan View, it goes back to black and white. Anyway, the trick is with Plan View, when you want to print these, you typically do want to print to scale. Go back to your Print menu, Control P, and let's take a look at one of the settings we haven't looked at yet, which is this Fit to Page radio button. By default, SketchUp wants to squeeze whatever you're looking at onto whatever sheet of paper you've chosen. However, now I want it to print it to scale. So in the printout, I want it to be 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. So in SketchUp, 12 inches or a foot, and you can actually choose a foot here if you are really anxious about, is this going to look right? So I have 0.25 inches in the printout equals 1 foot in SketchUp. And it will tell me exactly how much paper that's going to take, and oh, that looks like it's going to be a little bit too big. So instead of 0.25, I'm going to go 0.125, which is 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. And here you can see, and I could type in 1/8 of an inch there, and here you can see it's squeezing very nicely onto an 8.5 by 11. As I mentioned, SketchUp will print whatever it sees on the screen, so it's actually probably printing some white area on either side of this. I could get rid of that if I wanted. But anyway, then you just click OK, save your PDF file, and you can walk over to the Digital Print Lab, and it will preserve the page size and the page setup and any styles that you've applied. And that's basically all it takes to print from SketchUp.